Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Aline. I am a clinical therapist and I love making videos about mental health, relationships, and self-development. Today I want to talk about trauma and how it affects relationships. But first I would like to define what is trauma. Trauma is generally defined as a response to an emotional or event or series of events that deeply distressing or disturbing. It can also result in a range of experience including physical, it's really there's a range. It can be as small as feeling ignored by your parents, or it can go up into like emotional abuse or witnessing some sort of a loved one being hurt, things like that. So trauma can be significant and lasting effects on an individual, and studies have actually demonstrated that it can also be generational. So if your parents experience a certain trauma, you can also on your turn feel that and bring that in with yourself without being actually there from that trauma, but that's for another video. So there's a few types of trauma. So there's acute trauma that results in a single traumatic event, for example an accident or a loss. There's chronic trauma, which results in a prolonged or repeated exposure to traumatic events such as ongoing abuse or living in a war zone. And there's complex trauma, which involve multiple, often interpersonal traumatic events over an extended period, such as prolonged child abuse, domestic violence, or just being in an environment where you always constantly feel hostile to your well-being or your survival. There's some, I want to get into a little bit of like how trauma affects people. Trauma can affect you on an emotional level, meaning like trauma can lead to intense feelings of fear, sadness, anger, guilt that sometimes maybe doesn't make sense, and also anxiety, depression, and mood swings. There's also cognitive impact on trauma, like sometimes you remember things that happen and then it's hard for you to process information, or like you develop a negative thinking pattern. So the way trauma can affect your mind is sometimes you can develop a distorted, which means like something that's not right, and a false idea of who you are or what people are, or people how they show up for you. Trauma can manifest itself as a chronic pain or fatigue, inability to sleep. Trauma can also manifest physically by like having symptoms like headache that don't heal even if you take medication. In terms of behavior, trauma can show up like just you acting different from your usual, meaning like you can start maybe avoiding people and places. You can start doing like self-isolating behavior, like you don't want to go out with your friends or like you socialize, or just slowly isolate yourself. And also it can lead to abuse of substances such as alcohol or drugs, or even food or social media. And trauma can also affect your ability to maintain relationships, and that's what I wanted to talk about today actually. There's a few things that I wanted to share with you guys on how trauma might be affecting your relationships. The first thing is it can affect the trust. Like you can start having trust issues. Often like you, let's say someone has experienced abuse in their relationships in the past, and then they have a new relationship, and then this time it's really hard for you to trust people. There's a lack of that lack of trust can really create barriers to people to feel connected with you. That can lead again to difficulty maintaining close relationships and connections. So if you have that, that's a sign that you still have maybe unhealed trauma that you need to process and heal. And also there's fear of vulnerability, meaning being afraid to really show your vulnerable side or talk about difficult things because you feel like maybe it's gonna affect the way people perceive you, and that fear prevents you to open up to other people or express your true feelings, and then the other people can have a difficulty connecting with you. And also there's emotional numbness, and that I find some people think that it's being strong when things don't affect you, but it's a trauma response. you as human being, we're all supposed to be feeling things. When things happen in life, the kind of like curvature of up and downs, it's normal to have a emotional range and being able to feel things and then process them and move on. But when you have experienced trauma, you develop a difficulty to feel things, and you become numb. So that shows up in like people not being able to like cry or even laugh. They just like numb about a lot of things. Amazing things could happen in your life, and you don't react, you don't feel happy, and that is really challenging if you're trying to create a partnership with someone, to be able to connect with them. If they can't see how life events affects you, then it's hard for them to connect with you. And also trauma has you can develop attachment difficulty. How that shows up in someone's life is like you have a heightened sensitivity to like perceived threats or conflict, which leads to an overreaction or difficulty handling disagreement constructively, meaning you have a hard time getting like a negative feedback. If your partner gives you a constructive criticize, you're gonna have a hard time accepting that and maybe go on a defense mode and start like creating fights or being defensive, just because it's hard for you to handle feeling that your relationship can be threatened. There's also an idea that you have to maintain a vision of like being perfect, which is hard because nobody's perfect. But the people who have experienced trauma, they tend to want to appear in control and then in control and perfect, which is really hard to maintain as a human being, especially in relationships. Trauma can impact self-esteem and self-worth, which may result in an individual feeling unworthy of love, attention, affection, and that shows up on how they interact with people. And that's also, if that shows up in your relationship, I'll give you an example. Like if you are meeting a new partner and then they do so many things for you and you're like, oh my gosh, this is too good or too much, and then you just like freeze, you go in freeze mode. That's another video talking about how you're unable to either receive or appreciate the good that people can offer you. So that can be really also that can be a trauma response as well. And also avoidance behavior, I think I discussed it earlier. Like people have experienced trauma, sometimes they just want to self-isolate. They don't like to be with a lot of people because it's a lot to handle at the same time. If you're always feeling like you're in a fear of like fight or flight, some individual may engage in avoidance behavior to cope with trauma, such as withdrawing from relationship and avoiding intimacy, like always maintaining those relationships that are on the surface, never really having deep emotional discussion or vulnerability with people. Also, trauma can show up in a relationship as hypervigilance. So trauma can lead to a state of hypervigilance, meaning that you're constantly on the edge, on alert, like something bad is gonna happen, which can strain relationships. Like imagine if you have a partner and you're always waiting for like a fight to happen or something, so it's hard for that person to relax around you, and that can create tension and misunderstanding in relationship. And also one last thing that I wanted to discuss is like in some cases, individual may unconsciously reenact a trauma in their relationship. I see this a lot in my clients. If like you have a pattern of like up and downs, and then you meet a partner who's just healthy and happy and able to communicate, you start creating patterns of like picking fights so you can get that high. I will talk about this in another video, about how sometimes if you're coming from an unstable relationship, you create a dynamic of like up and downs, and that what happens with that is you start reacting and creating situation where you can get that high, the up and down, because it's a cycle and it can actually get addictive. So yeah, those are a few things that to kind of watch out when you're in a relationship and see how you react, because that can come up as you reacting to trauma in the past. And I just want to tell you guys that yes, this like looks like a lot of things, but you can heal that. It's possible to overcome those things if you're able to develop your self-awareness. The beautiful thing about the mind and the human experience is that we can all evolve and change and be better. We have to willing to do the work. And the first step is realizing like what's happening. If you notice that sometimes you get overwhelmed or you want to withdraw, and maybe being close to people makes you feel uncomfortable, then it's time for you to ask yourself, okay, what's going on behind this? And always be open to learn more. I think that's something that's important if you want to heal yourself. Also, I want to really talk to you about the mind of a person who has experienced trauma. Yes, you're different, but everybody has levels of trauma. Like what I was saying at the beginning, some people can experience trauma from not receiving enough love from their parents. That's legit a trauma. So we're not gonna say, oh, this trauma is more or this trauma is less. As human beings, we all experience different levels of hurt, but a hurt is a hurt. I'm trying to tell you not to quantify, not to feel bad or less bad. And then sometimes I find, especially in certain cultures, sometimes someone will tell you, oh well, so and so went through worse than you, but you still went through something. So it's your experience. You have to accept that happened, because you can't change your past, but you can change your mind. And that's really the highlight of this video today. You can actually change your future. I really want to remind you that, because sometimes when you're stuck in a dark time and you feel like nothing is going and you can't really push through, your mind can trick you and convince you that this is it. But the beauty of life is like, well, there's change, there was change, and we were given an amazing gift of having the capacity to overcome things by realizing things and also by learning ourselves. So I really encourage you to start self-development, personal development journey, and try to understand yourself. Try to kind of like observe within your relationship with either with your partners, your friends, your siblings, or your other family members. Ask yourself a question like, how do I react when this happens? Is this a trauma response? Is this something that I need to heal within myself in order to have better relationships? Because I believe as human beings, we are all here to thrive. We're here to connect. We are, yes, in this life in 2024, you can literally live by yourself. We are social beings. We like having people around us. We like to feel like we belong somewhere. My interest in my studies and everything that I've been doing is to help people understand the dynamics within their relationship so they can better have thriving relationship. Because mind you, if you have a relationship, if you live with someone and it's toxic and it's not good, it's gonna bleed into your other things, your work, even your health, your mental health. So it's important to learn those dynamics so we can improve our relationships. That was the video for today. I hope the information was useful. Please let me know in the comments. If you have questions about trauma, put it in the comment section. Like or unlike the video, just let me know what you thought. Also subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscriber by the end of 2024, so if you can help me, I would really appreciate that. I want to make accessible videos. I feel like we should make mental health more accessible for our community, and this is my first step. I hope you liked the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Mwah.